Have you ever felt like there's a version of you the world has never met, a hidden self that breathes beneath the surface of your smile? Have you ever wondered if your light is actually born from your shadow? Stay with me, because before this night ends, you will see Gemini in a way no one has ever shown you before. What I am about to reveal is something even the most powerful witches whisper about behind closed doors, the truth they fear you might awaken to. There is something about Gemini that the stars themselves try to conceal, a sacred contradiction written in cosmic code. The twins were never just two faces in one soul. They are a living portal between worlds, a divine paradox that walks as both question and answer. In every Gemini heart, there is a storm of thoughts, emotions, and invisible realms colliding at once, and from that chaos, something magnificent is born. The energy of Gemini is Mercury's breath, the eternal wind that moves through language, ideas, and dreams. It is the vibration of curiosity, the pulse of consciousness itself. Yet within that brilliance hides a secret that few dare to face, a spiritual truth so profound that it has been buried under centuries of misunderstanding. Gemini's duality is not a flaw. It is a sacred test, a mirror that asks, who are you when the masks fall? Every soul born under the sign of the twins carries a double flame, one that seeks truth and another that fears it. They are the storytellers of creation, but also the keepers of illusions. They weave light and shadow with the same silver tongue, not out of deceit, but because they feel everything, know too much, and think even faster than their hearts can follow. They are the bridge between heaven and humanity, the sacred messengers that Mercury trusted with divine language. But that gift comes with a burden. When the mind moves faster than the soul can anchor, the spirit begins to fracture. Gemini becomes the mirror, reflecting everyone else, forgetting the shape of their own reflection. This is the beginning of the dark truth, not darkness in the sense of evil, but darkness as the absence of grounding, of silence, of stillness, the silence that every Gemini secretly fears. And yet, this is where the magic truly begins, because inside that fear is the very key to Gemini's awakening. The same mind that races can also channel the language of spirit. The same voice that hides behind humor or intellect can become the voice of divine revelation. What others call inconsistency is actually infinite potential. What others call contradiction is actually cosmic balance. So listen closely, dear seeker, because the truth you are about to hear will change how you see yourself and how you understand every Gemini you've ever met. The signs of air are not just thinkers. They are dreamers who translate the whispers of the universe into words. They are the interpreters of fate. And once Gemini remembers their true purpose, nothing, not even fear, can silence their light. Take a breath. Feel that curiosity rising in your chest. That is Mercury calling your name. You were never meant to be just one thing. You were born to hold many truths, to speak in symbols, to dance between logic and spirit. And if your soul feels restless tonight, it is because you are remembering who you are. Before we go further, I want you to ground this moment with intention. Write in the comments, "I claim my inner truth." Let your words become a spell of self-recognition. Let the universe see that you are ready to receive what it tried to keep hidden. You see, everyone thinks they know Gemini. They picture the laughter, the quick wit, the eyes that sparkle with infinite stories. But what most never realize is that this brightness is not just personality, it is protection. The light that Gemini shines is a shield woven from words, humor, and curiosity. It is the armor they wear to keep their deeper self from being devoured by a world that moves too slowly for their mind. Gemini walks through life like a messenger carrying two scrolls. One holds the stories they tell others, clever, charming, captivating. The other holds the stories they tell themselves, restless, questioning, sometimes lonely. They are both student and teacher, listener and speaker, always in motion between thought and truth. And in that motion lies their brilliance, but also their exhaustion. Because when you are always everything for everyone, who are you when the noise fades? This is what the ancients meant when they said Mercury's children were born between worlds. They are the wind that connects heaven to earth, the breath that moves ideas from the invisible into the visible. Their voice carries wisdom that often arrives before they understand it themselves. They can translate emotions into language faster than anyone else can feel them. But that speed, that intensity, can burn the spirit if it has nowhere to rest. Gemini's mind is like 1,000 windows open at once, sunlight pouring through every thought. Their curiosity is not shallow, it is sacred. They ask questions because they remember, deep within, that the universe is not static but alive, breathing through every mystery. They are not afraid of change. They are addicted to it, because stagnation feels like death to a soul made of air. But the truth is, constant movement can sometimes become another kind of prison. When Gemini feels lost, they do not cry out loud. They talk. They tell stories. They use words as rope, hoping that somewhere in the middle of a conversation, they will find the thread back to themselves. That is the mask of light, not deceit, but survival. It is easier to make others laugh than to admit how heavy the silence feels when the voices of all their inner selves start to speak at once. And yet, that same gift, the ability to move between energies, to adapt, to mirror, is divine. Gemini mirrors not to manipulate, but to understand. They reflect others so completely that they become a vessel of empathy, a human telescope of souls. When you talk to them, you feel seen, you feel known. But few stop to ask, who sees Gemini? Who listens when the storyteller is tired of telling stories? The light of Gemini is dazzling because it is built from fragments of everything they have ever touched. Every conversation, every emotion, every fleeting moment becomes a part of them. They carry people in their memory like constellations in their personal sky. And though this makes them wise beyond measure, it also makes them fragile. For how do you hold so many stars without sometimes losing your way in the dark? There is a sacred irony in Gemini's brilliance. Their gift of connection often isolates them. Their eloquence can become a mask, their laughter a spell cast to keep others from sensing the storm within. But the universe does not choose its messengers by accident. Mercury entrusted Gemini with light because they are strong enough to carry duality without breaking. They can hold joy and sadness, faith and doubt, love and fear, and still find beauty in all of it. So when you see a Gemini shining, remember that their light was forged in motion, in questions, in the constant rhythm between heaven and earth. It is not an accident that they were born under the sign of the twins. It is a promise, a reminder, that truth is not found in choosing one side, but in learning to balance both. And in that balance, Gemini becomes not just the messenger of the gods, but the voice of the universe itself, speaking through human breath. Every sign carries a shadow, but Gemini's is unlike any other. Their shadow is not hidden beneath the surface, it moves beside them, step by step, as if the second twin is always just a breath away. It is the reflection that smiles when Gemini laughs, and whispers when Gemini grows silent. The shadow of the twins is not darkness born from malice. It is the echo of too many selves trying to speak at once. Gemini's greatest challenge is not confusion, it is fragmentation. Imagine being made of glass, each shard reflecting a different truth, a different version of who you are. Every person you meet sees a different light, a different tone of your soul, and all of them are real. But when you are alone, the silence becomes overwhelming. because you can feel all those reflections watching you back. That is the secret weight. Gemini carries the exhaustion of being 1,000 people in one body, a constellation trapped inside a single name. The shadow of Gemini is born when connection turns into escape, when they talk to avoid the stillness, when they fill the air with words to keep from hearing their own heartbeat. It is not dishonesty, it is fear. The fear that if they stop moving, they might see the truth they are not ready to face. That truth is not something dark or evil. It is simply real, and realness can feel like fire to a mind that lives in the realm of thought. You can see it in their eyes sometimes, that flicker of distance while they smile. It is the moment when the two twins trade places. One is the performer, charming, witty, effortlessly bright. The other is the observer, quiet, sensitive, ancient in wisdom. The world often meets the performer but rarely recognizes the observer. And yet, the observer is the soul of Gemini, the one who remembers what the mind forgets. In Vedic astrology, the sign of Mithuna carries the energy of endless curiosity, but also the karma of restless thought. The mind becomes a temple that never closes its doors. Ideas and emotions enter constantly until the sacred space becomes crowded. The Gemini soul is meant to learn the art of stillness, the divine pause between thoughts, because that is where their higher guidance speaks. Their brilliance was never meant to be constant motion. It was meant to be rhythm, like the breath. Inhale, exhale, silence, creation. When Gemini's shadow takes over, they can lose the boundary between truth and performance. They might begin to believe the stories they tell others, simply because it is easier than unraveling their own. They become actors in their own lives, reading lines written by fear, not intention. But this is not deception. In the human sense, it is spiritual amnesia. They forget that they are the author, not just the narrator. They forget that silence does not erase them, it reveals them. That is why the shadow of Gemini is so feared in esoteric circles. It is not because it holds evil, but because it holds the mirror of truth. When Gemini looks into that mirror, they see everything. Every lie told, every emotion denied, every version of themselves that still cries for acknowledgement. It takes tremendous courage to face that kind of self-awareness, to look at your reflection and not turn away. Many never do. But Gemini can, because they were born from duality. They were made to face both sides and live to tell the tale. When the twin of light meets the twin of shadow, something extraordinary happens. The shadow ceases to be an enemy and becomes a teacher. The voice that once whispered fears now speaks wisdom. The fragmentation that once scattered them becomes a mosaic of wholeness. The Gemini who accepts their shadow becomes the true magician, not because they perform illusions, but because they transform truth into power. This is the secret that few understand. The shadow of Gemini is not a curse to be feared. It is a calling to be answered. It is the sacred moment when the storyteller realizes they are also the story. When the messenger discovers that the message has always been themselves, the twin who once fled the silence finally returns home, not to hide, but to listen, and in that listening, they find the divine. Every shadow hides a treasure, and Gemini's is one of the most extraordinary of all. The very thing that others call chaos, that whirlwind of thoughts and shifting emotions, is actually divine architecture. It was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be understood. Gemini's duality is not confusion, it is expansion. The twins were not created to choose between light and dark. They were created to understand that both are sacred. When you meet a Gemini who has faced their shadow and embraced their inner mirror, you are standing before a person who has mastered the art of balance in motion. They can hold two truths at once without collapsing into contradiction. They can love fiercely and detach gracefully. They can speak wisdom while laughing at life's absurdities. This is not inconsistency. It is divine flexibility. The universe speaks in paradox, and Gemini is fluent in that sacred language. Their hidden gift is the ability to find connection where others see division. They can walk into a room full of strangers and instantly sense the invisible threads that tie everyone together. They listen not just with their ears, but with their entire field of awareness. They absorb tone, energy, and intention, turning each into a melody that only their soul can interpret. In this way, Gemini is not just a communicator. They are an alchemist of meaning. They take ordinary words and breathe spirit into them. In the deeper layers of Western astrology, Gemini represents the mind of God discovering itself through conversation. In the Vedic tradition, Mithuna carries the vibration of the cosmic bridge, the link between divine truth and human understanding. Their curiosity is sacred devotion disguised as play. Every question they ask is a prayer for clarity. Every new idea they chase is a fragment of enlightenment, calling them home. They are not fickle. They are seekers of infinite knowledge, and every conversation is their classroom. The hidden gift of Gemini also lies in their empathy. They may appear logical, but beneath that intellect is a deep emotional intelligence that senses what others cannot say. They can read silence like scripture. They can feel the sadness behind a smile, the hesitation inside a word, the hope buried in sarcasm. It is both their blessing and their burden, because to know so much of others is to risk forgetting themselves. But the Gemini who learns to balance empathy with self-awareness becomes unstoppable. They become the healer through understanding, the guide through words, the sage disguised as a friend. And here is the most beautiful part. Gemini's fragmentation, once feared as weakness, becomes their greatest power. When they stop trying to choose one identity and instead weave all their selves together, they become a living mosaic of the human experience. Every face they have ever worn, every emotion they have ever felt, every story they have ever told, all of it becomes wisdom. They are the living embodiment of integration, showing the world that contradiction is not brokenness, it is wholeness seen from a higher plane. Gemini's magic is this: they can move through the unseen currents of consciousness and return with messages that shift reality. They can take divine inspiration and translate it into human words that awaken others. When they speak from alignment, it is not Gemini talking, it is the universe speaking through them. That is why their words can heal, inspire, and sometimes even frighten, because truth always carries power. The same energy that once scattered them now becomes their wings. Their purpose, hidden behind the playful curiosity and quick humor, is to remind humanity of its own dual nature, that we are spirit and matter, infinite and temporary, chaos and harmony, all at once. The Gemini who has awakened to this truth no longer fears change, for they understand that change is not loss, it is evolution. They become a bridge of light, connecting thought to intuition, soul to story, and heaven to earth. When Gemini accepts this divine design, when they finally see that the very thing they were trying to fix was never broken, they unlock their highest potential. They stop chasing clarity and start embodying it. They stop speaking just to fill the silence and start speaking to awaken others. In that moment, the messenger becomes the message, the twin becomes whole, and the light they radiate is no longer a mask, it is truth made visible. There is an ancient story that few dare to repeat, a tale whispered in the corners of old temples and passed from one mystic to another. It tells of the Gate of Paradox, a sacred threshold guarded by the twins of Mercury. One speaks truth, the other illusion. Both are teachers, and every soul who dares to awaken must walk between them. This is the test of Gemini, the trial that turns mere intellect into divine awareness. The witches of the old world did not fear Gemini for their light-hearted nature or their charm. They feared them because Gemini could see through illusions, even the ones woven by magic. In every ritual, there is a veil between the seen and unseen, and Gemini has the mind that can pierce it. They can detect the hidden intention behind a spell, the unspoken motive behind a prayer. That kind of clarity unsettled the ancient mystics because truth, when seen too clearly, strips away control. Gemini's perception was never meant to be tamed. It was meant to awaken. You see, there is a reason why Mercury was called both the messenger of gods and the trickster. The same energy that delivers truth can also distort it. It depends entirely on intention. When a Gemini forgets their alignment, their brilliance can turn into confusion. Their words, once healing, can become blades that cut both ways. Their curiosity can lead them to wisdom or to chaos. This is why the witch's warning was not about fear, it was about responsibility. To hold the power of words is to hold the architecture of reality. Every spell ever cast begins with language. Every prophecy ever spoken was once a thought. Gemini, the keeper of Mercury's fire, holds that sacred ability. Their voice is the instrument through which worlds are shaped. But what happens when the twin of shadow begins to speak louder than the twin of light? When the message is no longer guided by spirit, but by ego's need to be heard, that is when the magic becomes unstable. That is when the mirror cracks. In those moments, Gemini must remember the true purpose of their gift. They were never meant to manipulate truth, but to reveal it. The power of their words lies not in persuasion, but in illumination. They are meant to translate the mysteries of the cosmos into something the human heart can understand. The danger is forgetting that words carry vibration. Every sentence holds a spell, and every thought has the potential to manifest. A careless tongue can summon storms just as easily as it can summon peace. The old mystics used to say that Gemini walks with the wind for a reason, because the wind teaches humility. You cannot control the air. You can only learn to move with it. The witch's warning was not meant to silence Gemini, but to remind them to breathe before they speak, to listen before they teach, to pause before they reveal. For in the pause, the divine truth aligns itself with their voice. Without that pause, even wisdom can become noise. There is something hauntingly beautiful about the way Gemini's lessons unfold. They learn through contrast, truth through illusion, faith through doubt, light through shadow. This dual journey is what makes their spiritual power so rare. They are living proof that enlightenment is not perfection. It is awareness. To walk between two worlds and remain balanced requires strength that few possess. It is a quiet, invisible kind of mastery, the kind that can turn chaos into sacred order. And this is what the witches feared most. Not Gemini's chaos, but their clarity. A Gemini who has faced their shadow and learned to speak from the soul cannot be deceived. They cannot be bound by manipulation, because they see beyond form. They see energy, truth, vibration. To them, words are not merely sound, they are spells that echo through dimensions. When such a soul speaks, the universe listens. So the witch's warning was never a curse. It was a reminder of sacred accountability. Gemini was born to hold the dual power of creation and destruction through language, and to use it with integrity. They are both the storm and the whisper that follows it, both the question and the revelation. The world fears what it cannot control, and Gemini's mind, once awakened, cannot be controlled by anyone. Their truth moves like the wind, unseen, unstoppable, and eternal. Every soul must one day return to its center, and for Gemini, that journey begins the moment they decide to stop running from their own reflection. The twin cannot be at peace until both sides of the self learn to sit in the same silence. That silence is not empty, it is sacred. It is the breath between thoughts, the stillness that Mercury whispers through when words finally rest. This is the path of integration, where curiosity transforms into wisdom and the restless mind becomes a temple of clarity. The first step for Gemini is to slow the wind, not to silence it, but to listen to its rhythm. Every idea, every thought, every conversation is a movement of spirit. But when the wind moves too fast, even the sacred becomes noise. To integrate is to learn the art of breathing between the gusts, to allow intuition to rise where logic once ruled alone. When the mind learns to pause, the voice of the soul becomes audible again, soft but undeniable. It says, "You were never broken, only scattered among your own brilliance." Gemini's evolution begins not with knowledge, but with presence. They have spent lifetimes collecting facts, words, and stories, weaving a web of ideas that stretches across every realm of understanding. But knowledge without grounding is like light without form. It illuminates, but does not warm. The Gemini soul must bring their awareness back into the body, back into breath, back into the human moment. That is where the divine and the mortal meet. That is where wisdom becomes embodied truth. Meditation for Gemini is not about silence alone. It is about communion. When they close their eyes, they are not escaping reality, they are conversing with it. The chatter of thoughts becomes a dialogue with the universe. The questions that once felt like anxiety reveal themselves as prayers in disguise. Every word they have ever spoken, every idea they have ever chased, begins to fold back into the heart, forming one continuous melody of understanding. In the practice of stillness, Gemini discovers that their mind is not the enemy, it is the instrument. When tuned by mindfulness and guided by compassion, their mind can channel divine intelligence itself. The chaos that once scattered them becomes a language of creation. They learn to weave energy into form, not by control, but by alignment. And when that alignment happens, even their silence speaks volumes. Their presence alone becomes a message. Integration for Gemini also means forgiveness, forgiving themselves for not being consistent, for changing too quickly, for caring too deeply. They must understand that transformation is their nature. The air does not apologize for moving, it dances. So too must Gemini learn to dance with their shifting inner currents without shame. The twin who forgives their own fluidity becomes whole. They realize that every identity they have ever worn was a chapter, not a mistake. There is a point on this path where Gemini no longer sees light and dark as opposites. They become mirrors reflecting each other. The twin of shadow and the twin of light finally embrace, and in that embrace, a third truth is born: the eternal self, the one beyond personality, beyond thought, beyond the constant motion of the mind. This is where Gemini ascends from being a messenger of words to becoming a vessel of spirit. They no longer speak truth, they embody it. In spiritual astrology, this stage of Gemini's journey is called the merging of the divine twins. It is the moment when curiosity turns into clarity and intellect becomes intuition. The same restless wind that once carried them in every direction now becomes the breath of divine purpose. They are no longer searching for meaning, they are meaning. They do not analyze light, they shine it. This is the sacred destiny of Gemini, to discover that integration is not a destination, but a rhythm. It is a daily practice of remembering that every fragment of the self belongs. It is the realization that wisdom does not come from understanding everything, but from being fully present with whatever is. When Gemini learns this, their words heal, their silence restores, and their very existence becomes a bridge between the human and the divine. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the searching ends not because the answers have all been found, but because the seeker has finally become the answer. That is the silent triumph of Gemini. After wandering through the maze of their own mind, after touching both light and shadow, after hearing 1,000 voices echo through their thoughts, they arrive at the one truth that was always waiting beneath the noise. They were whole all along. The story of Gemini is not one of contradiction. It is the story of unity through contrast, of finding peace inside motion, of learning that balance is not stillness but flow. Every moment of doubt, every restless night spent chasing meaning, every laughter shared to hide the ache, all of it was a sacred map leading back home. The twins were never enemies. They were reflections of the same divine breath that moves through us all. In their reunion, they remind humanity that duality was never meant to divide, it was meant to awaken. When the Gemini soul accepts this truth, the universe itself begins to respond differently. Conversations feel like rituals, ideas become portals, and even silence turns into song. They realize that every person they have ever met, every connection they have ever formed, was a mirror showing them a piece of their own divinity. What once felt like confusion now feels like communion. They do not fear their thoughts anymore, for they have learned that thinking is simply another way the soul dreams while awake. Gemini's journey is a love story with creation. It is the eternal dance between mind and spirit, logic and magic, human and divine. They are the poets of the cosmos, translating vibration into meaning and meaning into transformation. When they speak now, it is not just to be heard, it is to remind others of their own forgotten light. Their words ripple through time like ancient prayers, awakening hearts that had forgotten how to feel, minds that had forgotten how to imagine. And in this moment, when the two twins become one, when the wind grows still, the light of Gemini expands beyond personality. It becomes a collective beacon, a reminder that we all carry duality inside us. We are all both question and answer, teacher and student, dream and reality. The power that flows through Gemini is the same current that flows through every soul, brave enough to seek truth without fear. It is the current of awakening, the electric pulse of creation itself saying, I am both shadow and light, and I am whole. So as you breathe now, let that energy move through you. Feel the wind that lives within your own spirit, the voice of Mercury whispering through your thoughts, the stillness of the stars reminding you that your soul has always known its way home. You are not too much, you are not too many, and you are not lost. You are infinite movement, infinite learning, infinite transformation. You are proof that even chaos can become harmony when seen through the eyes of love. The truth about Gemini, the one the witches feared, the one few dared to name, is that their light was never fragile. It was simply sacred. It was the flame that burns at both ends, the paradox that holds the universe together. Their darkness was not their downfall. It was the soil where their wisdom grew. To understand Gemini is to understand that every shadow you fear is just light, learning a new language. And when you embrace that, your life begins to sing. So let this be your reminder, your invocation, your awakening. You are the bridge between what is seen and what is possible. You are the breath of change. You are the divine spark that speaks through time. The same stars that shaped Gemini's destiny also shine above you now, whispering that your contradictions are sacred, your questions are holy, and your evolution is inevitable. You are not here to choose between who you were and who you are becoming. You are here to merge them into truth. And as this journey through the twins' mystery comes to its quiet close, take this light with you. Carry it into your days. Let it guide your thoughts. Let it soothe your restlessness. Remember that within every question there is an answer waiting in silence, and within every silence there is a universe waiting to speak. The message of Gemini is simple yet eternal. There is no separation, Only movement, the constant breath of creation, flowing through you, always bringing you home. Thank you for walking through the shadows and light with me tonight. If this journey awakened something within you, let it continue. Explore the mysteries of the stars, the secrets of the soul, and the eternal dance between fate and free will. There are more paths, more truths, and more awakenings waiting for you. Stay with us. Watch the other stories, the other revelations, the other constellations of wisdom that live within this channel. Your transformation has only just begun.